Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to episode 77 of the Hardly Millennial podcast, where we are young, dumb, and full of...
Oh, this is my line. Shit.
Matthew.
Opinions.
Opinions.
That's it. I had it written down. We're good.
Oh, God. Okay. Good. Don't ever let that fucking happen again, Matthew.
Sorry,
So, hello, everybody. Thank you for joining us today. My name is Adam.
I'm Matthew.
That's Matthew.
I'm still Matthew.
And to get started today, something strange happened to us about, what was it, like an hour ago now?
About an hour ago.
Yeah. Why don't you tell us, Matthew, what happened?
Oh, boy. Okay, I'll do the honors. So we didn't expect to open with this today. This was given to us from the world. Mm-hmm. So, well, let's just take it from the top here.
Yeah.
Me and Adam and I, we smoke cigarettes. Mm-hmm. It's an unfortunate event that happens quite often. But we do it. And normally we smoke cigarettes in the backyard. Mm-hmm. However, we've recently planted some lovely lavender, and it has brought the bees with the summertime. So there's bees infesting our backyard right now.
Yes.
Or just living in it, I guess. Yeah. So we were out front, and we were smoking a cigarette, and we were just doing the normal, quietly smoking thing. Mm-hmm. And I looked down, and off, probably about 3 feet away from me, off in the rocks, was a little shiny object.
A shiny object?
It was shiny, and the sun was glinting off of it, and I said, what the fuck is that? So, of course, I walked over to it, and now I'm out in the rocks, right? I'm pretty far away from the front door. Uh-huh. And I look down, and it's a key.
A key?
There's a key in the front yard. And the first thing I think is, oh, sometimes you find keys. Kids walk by here a lot every day on the way home from school. They probably just threw a key or something. You know, it's probably a bike key or something dumb. And I need to note that this key was very worn down. Yeah. This key looks like it had been in the front yard for months. Mm-hmm. Okay.
Like it looked like it had like a design on it at one point.
At one point there was
totally
paint.
Washed
it
away.
Was totally gone. It's now just like flat metal.
Yeah.
Okay. And I walk over to Adam. I'm like, hey, Adam, check it out. I found a key. And he's like, oh, cool. And he goes, does it open the front door? And I'm thinking in my head, like, fuck no, it doesn't open the front door. But, you know, I'm an idiot. So I'm like, all right, let's try it. Let's just be stupid, you know? And I take like 6 or 7 steps over to the front door and I put the key in.
And lo and behold.
And it was our fucking front door key.
Our front door key.
It worked. It unlocked it. It locked it. I tried it twice.
Yep.
And at that point, Adam and I were very confused.
Yes, to say the least.
You don't know where the key came from, do you?
No.
Not at all.
And I'm under the impression all of us who live, there's 4 of us who live here. I'm under the impression we all have our key. I know I have mine.
I know I have mine. I know what everyone else's key looks like.
Yes.
And I've never seen this key, because there was enough of the paint left on it that we figured out what the symbol was.
Yeah, it looked like it was a cow, like the football
Dallas
team, Cowboys. Yeah.
And there's nobody who lives with us who likes the Cowboys.
Not even into sports, really.
No, 0%.
And that's the thing too, is all of our keys have, you know, whatever design on it, and we, just as you said, we know what everyone's like design is.
Yeah. I've never seen a Cowboys key.
And we had a roommate that lived here before you and the other one who lives here lived here, and like. And we know that they didn't have like a Cowboys key or anything. In fact, I'm pretty sure she gave the key back, and that's the key that our 4th roommate has now.
And I know Justin gave me my key.
Yeah.
I got his, and he made himself a new one that he still has. I've lived with you for coming up on a year.
Yeah.
So this key has been out there for a very long time. Mm-hmm. Now let's put one little extra twist on this story, because I left one small detail out, which makes it even weirder. Mm-hmm. So Justin's parents came to visit about 2 months ago?
Something like that,
About 2 months ago. And during that visit, Justin's father changed out the locks of the front door, and I think some other ones on the inside. But definitely the front door was changed. So even had it been a key from someone way before me or you, the fucking lock was changed.
Yeah.
So why would an old key work in the new lock?
Well, and not just that, but like on top of Justin's dad changing the lock, when you close on a house and then
they change the locks.
Yeah, they change
right?
the locks, exactly.
So where in the hell did this key come from?
Yeah, that's the question, isn't it? What
I've also cleaned the yard many times.
That was what weirded me out.
I clean it 2 or 3 times a month. Mm-hmm. I pick the weeds. I get down and dirty with it. I've hoed the whole front yard.
Yeah,
every inch of it. I don't.
Never come across it before.
It literally fell out of the sky.
Like I said, the only explanations I can think of, and they're not good explanations based off of the evidence we currently have, because the first thing I thought of was like, okay, maybe Justin gave his boyfriend a key, and maybe he dropped the key or something like that. But we know Justin's boyfriend, and I don't think he's a Cowboys fan.
I really don't think he has a key. I think that they've specifically talked about getting him a key,
and he was like, no,
because he doesn't have one yet.
But and even if he did, like I said, I'm pretty sure he's not a Dallas Cowboys fan. And so the only explanation on top of that then is like, oh, well, they just chose a random design when they made the key made. But then the question is, if you were at a key station, you were given all these designs and you're not into the Dallas Cowboys, you're probably not going to choose the Dallas Cowboys thing.
Well, and it's been out there long enough for all the paint to come off of it.
Yeah,
and for it to just be like brass. So it's clearly been months.
Yes. But the thing is, if somebody were using it to get into the house, there's a lot of expensive stuff in this house, and none of it's missing to my knowledge.
It also wasn't found near where the cars are parked. It wasn't near the driveway. There's like a little
in the front
walkway
yard,
from the driveway to the front door. It wasn't near the walkway.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't in the middle of the front yard, but it was like 3 feet off of the walkway.
Right.
You would have had to take a step over and then lose the key.
Like you would have had to drop it and then like kick it, into the front yard.
It's like somebody
at an odd
the
angle.
Key over there.
Yeah.
Dude, it was really weird. We felt the need to tell the world about it.
It got me thinking of these weird stories and there's been a couple of stories out there like this that I've heard where there's like somebody living in the attic or something like that in somebody's home. Have you heard these stories before?
And you have no idea.
Okay, so there was this particular footage that came out that circulated.
Oh, it would be hot in our attic. I feel bad.
Yes, it would.
I wish he would just introduce himself.
Well, there's been cases of cupboards also.
No.
So there was this footage that was going around. I want to say almost like 10 years ago at this point, but I remember the story was there was this couple that lived in a house and they started to notice things like either missing or becoming misplaced or like
so you think it's a ghost
food from their fridge,
right?
Yes,
like, we got
some
a ghost.
shit like
Whatever.
that. And I don't even think that was the first conclusion they jumped to, but it was just it was happening enough to where they're like, okay, let's put up security cameras because obviously there's some weird shit going on here. And so they put up security cameras in their home.
Oh my God, this would be mortifying.
And yeah. So, and they had a security camera in the kitchen and right above the fridge, but to the right? Like something you would almost need like a ladder or something in there to like actually be able to reach, but there were cupboards up there.
Uh-huh.
And they saw in the security footage, this like ratty woman coming out of the cupboard, like got down from the cupboard, like opened the fridge, took some like food out of there, like ate it a little bit, threw away the trash, then like went back up into the cupboard. And they saw this footage. Now imagine we put up security cameras around this house, right? And you and I are sitting in this room and we're watching the footage from the security camera. And all of a sudden we see somebody climb out of a cupboard in our kitchen that we never go into, and then go back in after eating food or whatnot. So now think about it. We're just like, okay, well, we know somebody's currently in this house with us. And then we both go downstairs staring at that fucking cupboard, knowing there's somebody in that fucking cupboard. Like,
bro, so immediately it makes me think that it was staged because I have some questions about all this. So you're telling me that for an extended period of time, this family, this couple was going in and out of their kitchen at different times of the day. And this woman never coughed, sneezed, farted, nothing, rolled over at the wrong time. She was perfectly ninja discreet every time.
Well, don't get me wrong. Like, there's definitely, because, I mean, I was definitely skeptical when I first saw it also. The only reason why I put validity to it is because I've heard of these kind of stories before.
That's insane. How uncomfortable to live in a cupboard.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's very possible, because this was just the one piece of footage that I saw from the security camera. It's very possible that this, woman would leave the house at some points or for extended periods or whatever it is, And, but like, I have heard other stories too. That was the first story I heard about a cupboard. Usually it's like a, attic, they'll have somebody that's squatting in their attic.
That I can believe.
They'll do the footage and they'll come down.
Because there's usually a hole on the outside to air the attic out that you can get in from.
Yeah, exactly.
It's not, it wouldn't be comfortable, but you could do it.
Right.
So that I can believe. That would be
mortifying.
Terrifying. I would rather the person just come and knock on my front door and be like, hey, I've been living in your attic. I just want to let you know.
I've moved out.
And I, at that point, would be like, well, it's already been happening, and you haven't murdered me yet. So let's consider you maybe just being a roommate.
There you go.
Maybe we could just figure something out. You know what I mean?
It's like, you stay up there, just keep to yourself, don't make yourself known, but now you have to pay me to live here.
Well, I don't know. I never go in the attic. If somebody wanted to live up there, I mean, that's on them. It's pretty hot.
But if that was a person who was already like living up there and making themselves, unbeknownst to anybody else who lived here, my constituency would be like, you have to pay me now, and you still have to like make me forget about you. I don't ever want to see you. I don't ever want to know you're up there. You just keep doing your thing and send a check through the vents, when the first comes.
You'd be like, fuck you, I'm going to the neighbor's attic. The neighbor doesn't charge.
They have Wi-Fi in their attic. Could you imagine that? Just somebody who squats attic to attic.
That would be a rough life, man. That's rough.
I have no question though that there are people out there who do that.
What got us onto that? How did we start talking about
finding the key?
Oh, if there was someone living in our cupboard.
Yeah.
I would take a broom and I would knock on the cupboard with the broom handle.
Hey, get out.
Like, hey, I know you're in there. Come on. Just come on.
What a life to lead. But it's funny, though. I always think about those things. And just as you said, like, really somebody put themselves up in a cupboard, for however long and just, ninja'd it for, however long they were up there. But then I think of all the things you hear about or that people have done. And I'm just like, yeah, well, I do believe there are people out there who would fucking do that.
My dad actually has a story when he was young, I guess. I don't know. It was before I was alive. But he tells this story that he went to throw something away, but it was like in a dumpster, like a public dumpster,
Right.
And I don't know, he had like a piece of trash. So he just lifted up the lid of the whole dumpster to throw the trash in there like you would do.
Right.
And when he lifted it up, a guy like was in there and he was like, get the fuck out of my house, rah, 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 like that, like yelled at him. And it like startled the shit out of my dad, right?
Right.
So he told me the story and I was apparently too young to hear that story.
Yeah.
Because I was absolutely terrified for a few years of opening any kind of trash can. Because I was just like, someone was it. Like I would literally stand as far away as possible and like just lift it a little and like look and yeah, because I was terrified someone would be in there.
So that story reminds me
Never happened.
Of an irrational fear that I had when I was younger that my parents told me about. So but it was also due to something like my parents, let me see or, told me.
You just happened to be a little too young.
Yeah, a little too young for it. And that was I went through a dinosaur stage, right? As much little boys do.
Yeah.
And so obviously the main dinosaur movie of the time and probably of history to this point is, Jurassic Park.
Clearly.
So my parents let me watch Jurassic Park, but there were two parts in the movie that they didn't want me to watch. And the first one was the beginning part where the guy's like getting pulled into the cage by the raptor. It was like the very opening of the movie, right? And then the second part was where the guy escapes from the car with the T-Rex is escaping from its enclosure, and he goes and runs into the like porta potty, the bathroom, and the T-Rex comes down from overhead and picks him up and eats him, right?
Yeah.
So those were the two parts that my parents did not want me to see. Well, at one point, we had a babysitter. And the baby, and I liked watching Jurassic Park, so I was, I want to watch this movie, And she's like, okay, but she had no clue that my parents are like, hey, this part and this part, don't let him watch it.
Right. You're like, this is my chance.
Yeah, this is my chance, exactly. So I watched it. And my parents didn't know that I had watched Jurassic Park while the babysitter was there. So, and I was just like out of the throes of potty training. Like that part was already done. And I started regressing back to like peeing in the bed or going in my pants. I'm not into it anymore. Yeah. And my mom specifically told me, she goes, and we couldn't figure out why you like stopped going to the toilet to go to the bathroom. And then she told me that she remembers, like carrying me over to the bathroom once and like sitting there with me while I was on the toilet. And she goes, and you were just shaking, Adam. Like you were just shaking. And I kept trying to ask you like, what is wrong? Like, what are you scared of? And I finally responded one day and I said, I was scared that a T-Rex was going to come up from above me.
And she fucking knew.
Just fucking eat me. Yeah. And like,
she was like, damn it.
Exactly. She's like, fuck.
Somebody showed you the fucking movie, didn't they?
And after that, it basically just came down to my dad being like, nut the fuck up and use the damn toilet.
Like, how many people do you know have been eaten by a T-Rex while they were peeing?
Exactly.
Anybody? No, you're going to be fine.
But that was just one weird irrational fear I had because I just watched one little clip and my little 2-year-old mind took it out of context.
Oh, dude, it doesn't take much to terrify a kid. There's a fine line between excitement and terror.
And parents don't realize that either. Parents forget about that shit, because we see such stuff now that's just like, whatever, obviously fake. And then you don't realize
there's enough real shit to be scared of.
Zero clue. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, movies, whatever. That's not real.
I wonder if that's what ends up happening to us when we're younger and we watch horror. Not, but I just mean like not so much becoming desensitized by like what we see in horror movies. It's just getting older and just as you said, realizing there's a lot more horrible shit going on in the world.
Yes, it's just literally less scary.
Yeah,
the movies are as you get older because you find scarier things that actually happen.
Because the stuff that actually happens ends up scaring you more simply because it's real.
The only scary movie really that kind of creeps me out, and like I can still watch it, but it does genuinely creep me out, is Michael Myers. The Halloween movies.
Yeah.
Because he's like, in my opinion, he's very realistic.
Yeah, true.
Other than can be shot 12 times and keep, he's pulling 50 Cent here and there.
First movie was a very realistic.
The way he kills and his stalker mentality, he's just kind of a serial killer. I think we've talked about this before actually on the podcast.
Yeah, I think we had a whole podcast about horror.
For me personally, that real like that Michael Myers actually could exist, that makes him scarier to me. I'm
trying to think of like what truly scares me now as far as horror movies are concerned. And like I really can't think of it. I mean, horror movies have become so saturated is the wrong word, but they're just all the same now, right? It's all just about a different monster and a different jump cut.
I think I have an answer for it.
What?
As you get older, I think, at least for me, I don't know if it's like this for everyone, but documentaries start to
scare you
a lot creepier, and not so much documentaries that but documentaries about estranged things,
right?
Like things from space, spiritual encounters.
Yeah.
One in particular that I'm really thinking of is I watched a documentary about kids who claim that they've lived past lives.
Oh,
where they show them pictures
eerie.
and stuff.
Yeah.
There's one case in particular where this kid was going to his grandma's house, and his grandma had a picture on the wall, and the kid walked by the picture one day as he was getting older, and this kid's like 6 or 8 years old. He's a little kid, and he was like, "That's Fred or whatever." I'm just making up a name in the picture there,
right?
And his grandpa was in the picture. It was a picture of his grandpa, but he wasn't pointing at his grandpa. He was pointing at a stranger, totally different dude. And, nobody thought anything of it. And they were like, oh, whatever. It's just him using his imagination. And the stories got like more and more vivid and more vivid. And he started telling us. And the grandma was like, what the fuck? This is kind of weird. And like looked it up and found that in her husband's like squad or whatever, there was a guy with the name that the kid was saying. And with a little bit further research found that like these were actual events that the kid was talking about.
Oh, wow.
And it was just weird. It could have been totally scripted. It could have. But it was very convincing.
Well, I remember there was a very prominent case of that kind of stuff that happened. I don't even know when it happened, but they made like a movie off of it. And it was the kid who had said that he had, like, it was kind of similar to where like he pointed at a picture of like his dead grandpa, that had never been alive while the kid was alive. And he said that he was in heaven and he like met the grandpa and then met these other family members that the living family had never like mentioned to this little boy before. And it was just that same kind of thing of like, oh, well, before the kid was born, he was, in heaven with God and, met all of his old ancestors and stuff. And as far as that, and that's not really a past life story, but there is another past life story that I heard that I actually may have watched with you almost a year ago now, probably. But it was about a kid who was like the same thing. He was talking about how he was a woman in his past life and he was able to give a name for that woman, and he even said that he died in a fire. And they started looking more into it as he
and
kept
the story
saying more
matches
stuff.
up.
And he was and when they found picture, they brought somebody over, and because they did find, so that they called this expert or whatever, this journalist, and they were able to find this woman, this young black woman who lived in, I think it was like Chicago, and she did die in a fire. And she had the name too that the boy had talked about or that had mentioned. So, but the boy had never seen a picture of this woman before, right? So he had no clue if she was white or black or young or old, just knew that he was a woman that died in a fire, and he knew the name.
Right.
So this journalist came over, and she put a bunch of different pictures of women on the table, and included in that was this woman with the same name that the boy was mentioning.
Right.
And they asked him, "Can you point to who you were in your past life?" And he pointed to the woman with the same name. Yeah.
And for me, it just makes it a little extra interesting that it's kids, because I don't know. I guess an adult could be telling the kid to do it, but kids don't really have a whole lot to gain.
Yeah.
Like, a kid doesn't really care about $1 million. He just wants like candy and toys and shit, right?
Yeah.
Like, so why would a kid want to become famous by making up this story and shit? And like,
yeah.
I don't know. They don't, in my experience, children don't possess the level of like manipulation that an adult does.
Yeah,
Kids can manipulate, yes, but not to the level of like making up, like looking up research about someone and then making up a story.
Well, and especially as young as they are, because you never hear, it's never like a 14-year-old who's like, I used to be John.
It's always a little kid.
Yeah, it's always like between the ages of like 3 and 8.
Yeah.
That are saying this stuff. And just as you said, they don't have the, cognitive ability as of yet to like go on the internet and be like, hey, how can I make this story more realistic?
These could be exceptional kids, right?
True,
and that's why it's so rare that you only hear about it, because you only get an exceptional kid every so often. It's possible.
Right.
But that would be a very strange pattern emerging of these exceptional kids being born and every one of them being interested in lying about a past life.
Well,
that's a very weird pattern.
Yeah. Well, and something that adds validity to those kids also is, well, we're talking about our extreme cases, where kids are able to give details, of this past life they live. But there's a lot of recorded things out there of kids talking about stuff that never happened, or talking about things that did happen, but they would have no way of knowing. And a lot of the times it's like in passing, but it's just weird enough to catch your attention. And so there's tons of like articles and studies and stories out there of people who truly do believe that you do live, multiple lives. And
Dude, it's a hard one for me.
And the evidence is in these kids.
So it's really like personally difficult for me to make a decision on that because my human experiences like totally point to, yes, you live multiple lives.
What human experiences?
Like
just for context.
Like just these stories that you hear and things that I've learned throughout living as a human here on Earth. Like it doesn't seem out of the realm of possibility that could happen.
Gotcha.
But then my religious beliefs tell me that it doesn't say that it doesn't happen, but it doesn't ever say that it does happen. Like,
right.
I'm Christian, and there's nowhere in the Bible that says you live multiple lives.
Right.
It doesn't necessarily say, like, you do not, but if there was something that big, you'd think they would mention it. You know what I mean? And it's not mentioned. So that would lead me to think that it doesn't happen. But then, I don't know, my brain tells me, like, yeah, there's a lot of evidence. It probably happens.
Yeah, I've looked into different theories and stuff in regards to this kind of stuff too. And one commonality I always see when people are asked, like what is spiritual people, I should say, what are asked, like what is the meaning of life or something like that, right? Usually it's always met with an answer that's like to learn, right?
Usually
to
it's
gain
learning,
knowledge.
Choices, knowledge, something along those lines. Yes.
So I've heard theories out there in regards to the past life stuff is if there is a God and if there is a heaven, then the whole purpose of going and living these different lives over and over again is there's constantly more that you need to learn. And when you've kind of reached this pinnacle point where you're done, and you've learned all that you personally need to know for whatever, to be at peace, whatever it is, then that's when you move on to the other side.
Well, and also I've thought about it too, that like I've tried to just think logically about it, which is hard to do when you're talking about religion and belief and stuff. But I've tried. And like people didn't used to live as long as they do now. Sure. People used to live like half as long as they do now. Like 30 was the life expectancy in like the Middle Ages, right? Yeah. I don't know if that's exactly the number. I'm not a historian.
Probably pretty close.
But I think, 30 was a pretty good long life back then.
I'd probably even argue it was probably younger, honestly.
And I have heard reports also that there were many, many like 60 and 70-year-olds in the medieval times.
Yeah, of course.
But the infant mortality rate was so high that the average number we get, if you take 0 so many times and then 70 years old sometime,
right,
the average you get, because of all the zeros, they drag it down to 30. So if you go back to medieval days, there would be lots of old people. But in general, you didn't live as long on average.
Right.
Okay, so it's kind of a misconception. But let's just assume you only lived half as long as you do now. That would mean you only get half as much time to figure everything out on a spiritual level, right? Because you're limited by health technology here in this life. You have to keep your body alive to keep your spirit in it so you can keep learning, right? But now we live longer. So now we get like 60 years on average to figure out who we are and make decisions and learn and stuff. So that doesn't seem super fair to me. And everything about the Bible that I've read, I find it to be pretty fair in my belief system. Even like when Jesus died for our sins, the people who came before him, they never got a choice. Well, he went to hell before he rose, and he preached to them, right? So he gave everyone a choice.
Right.
So the Bible tends to find ways or find a reason to link things to make it so that everyone gets a chance at it.
Right.
So for me to think that God gave half of his beings, or maybe more than that, because more people lived before us than live now, that God gave so many of his beings half as much chance, and he gives them more and more chance over time. That seems weird to me.
Well, maybe it's fair, but just on a level that we can't comprehend. Maybe
Well, you would almost need multiple lives.
Well,
if you only live to be 20, you need another one, right?
Well, and that's what I mean, and I would say that they get that, and it may be.
I think maybe they might.
I mean, I feel like they would have to. It's like if you have a basket, and let's Easter just passed. Let's use an Easter, analogy here. You know, like let's say you have 4 kids and they all have a basket, and they all have to collect only one colored egg, right? But out there, there's 5 green eggs, 5 red eggs, 5 orange eggs, 5 yellow eggs,
and they're all going after orange.
And
eggs.
they're all going after their respective eggs.
Okay, they all have a different color they're going after.
But they will all end with 5 eggs by the end of it. So they're all going to have the same amount of eggs.
Right.
So, but the first kid finds all the 5 eggs in 5 minutes. He's already done. He's back inside enjoying, his candy and watching TV.
Right.
The other one, it takes him 2 hours to find all 5 eggs. And then one person, one kid takes him 3 days to finally find all 5 eggs,
Exactly.
But it's fair because in the end, you all still have 5 eggs.
Right.
You see what I mean?
Well, and for a long time, and part of me still believes that you're put into a situation in the life that you're given where you're able to find all your eggs in one lifetime.
True.
You wouldn't be put into a situation you can't handle. I do believe that.
And I think that's where just chance comes in, and is in regards to God, whether God is fair or unfair. He's fair in the sense that he gives everybody free will, but free will in itself creates a very unfair life.
But see, I don't think that God particularly cares about technology here on Earth. And I don't think God particularly cares about healthcare.
No.
And health technology and hospitals on Earth. That doesn't really mean shit to him. That's
well,
all
and I don't think it does either, but that's a result of free will, though.
Well, right. But for those things, those tangible things to affect how much opportunity is given to what's supposed to be his children,
right?
That would just seem weird to me. It's the more and more I'm thinking about it, it's like you would almost have to have multiple lives in order for everyone to get that same chance.
Yeah, and maybe that's very well what happens. I mean, I always kind of going along that theory, it makes me think of people who we regard as being old souls, right?
Yeah.
And there's something very inspiring when you watch these people in interviews or whatever it is. And there's a particular musical artist I really enjoy named Aurora, and whether you like her music or not, if you watch interviews with her, this woman just looks like she has it figured out. She's very whimsical, all very about it's one of those you can't help but to like her, right?
Right.
And it's one of those I watch those, and we know there are multiple people out there like that. Maybe this is their last life. Maybe the reason they're like that is because they've learned everything and now they just live in, mindful peace.
Or maybe they keep coming back even though they figured it out because you got to help everyone else figure it out.
Maybe.
Because in the Bible, we're all brothers and sisters.
Right.
You're supposed to love everyone like a brother and a sister, family. So just because you figured it out, just because you got all your eggs, as far as the Bible that I read from, at least, it would say you wouldn't go inside and start eating your chocolate. You would help everyone else get all of their eggs, and then all of you would go inside and eat the chocolate together.
Right.
You know what I mean? So maybe these wonderful old souls and these late... Oop, I almost spilled my coffee. Sorry, guys. Maybe these people who seem like they have it figured out, they do, but then they come back to help us out, to help the rest of us out.
Yeah, it's very possible. And maybe that's where choice comes in. Maybe it's that choice to, move on or, come back, but you come back with that.
It's still hard for me though, because I just feel like it would be talked about in there somewhere.
Well, maybe it's just one of those things that we're not supposed to know about, because the reason why we hear about only little kids talking about this stuff is because it sounds like it's just stuff that bleeds over, right? And as they get older, I think a lot of that kind of knowledge and stuff goes away. I mean, it's like the dinosaur.
And my theory on it is it's only kids because they're still innocent. Like they haven't gotten the it's the metaphor for it in the Bible is the knowledge. They haven't eaten the fruit yet, so they still have. That's why you don't hear 14-year-olds
talking about it.
Once you hit a certain age and you get into society, you're desensitized. Your innocence goes away,
right?
And then you wouldn't be able to remember it.
But at the same,
is my theory,
right. Well, no, and I would agree with that to an extent, but the problem is though, not all kids, recall this stuff. Just a few of them recall this stuff.
And I think most of us the vast majority don't remember,
Right.
even being a baby. You know what I mean? But a baby still has a brain and is recording things with its memory. It just, I don't know. Basically, what I'm trying to say here, without being a biologist or a scientist,
Right.
the point I'm trying to make is there's people with superhuman abilities who are born in different areas. There's people who can be outside in the cold and can keep a warm body temperature. And these people who can do these crazy, like, huge math equations very quickly. So they're still normal people, but they have a skill that all of us have, but don't usually
Can't tap into. Yeah.
We're not wired to do it. And I think just like some people are wired to be calculators, some people are wired to remember when they were fucking babies and like really little, possibly even as far back as the spiritual world. I don't know. That seems a little far-fetched to me because your brain wasn't involved there.
Well,
but
if we're going off of this belief of that you do live past lives, the question I've always wondered is, me right now, I'm Adam. I have a personality as Adam that is unique to everybody else. And you have, Matthew with a personality that's unique to everybody else. So if you live these past lives, am I still Adam? Does my brain still operate as Adam, but it's just Adam if I grew up with these particular experiences? Or is it a totally different personality altogether? And if so, does our soul hold on to, is there a tangible thing that makes us, that makes you?
So my theory on it, because there's no way of actually knowing, right? But my theory on it from the top of my head would be, you're your spirit. So there's like a spirit, there's a soul inside you, right? You're that. And then that, each body, each life would be like you going to a different continent.
Okay.
To be a tourist at a different continent. So if in this life as Adam Hansen, if you go to Brazil and you experience Brazil for a month, and then you go to another country, and then you go here, and then you go there. When you came back home after 10 years of traveling around the world, you would have a lot of different experiences, and those different experiences would culminate into your personality.
Right.
Would kind of make you who you are, right? They would shape you. So I think my theory is that there's a similarity going on with all these lives. That your spirit is you, but you could have been Sally in a past life, then you could have been Beckingham before that, and you could have been something else. And each life is like a different place that you went as a tourist, and it's shaping your personality.
The current personality that I have now.
So this life now is just like visiting a new place. It's giving you an experience that in your next life you will use. It'll be a new part of your personality.
Right.
Is what I would think if past lives are.
No, I mean
thing.
that's very similar to how I think about it. Of just that we have there's a base, and then
it could be that each one is totally separate, though.
Yeah,
it could
be. That's true, also, but
that seems a little less meaningful to me, though. If everyone is separate, then where's the end to it?
Well, and then the question arises as well of if we are all. If we're all constantly living these, new lives and we have past lives, what we see in the world and what we've seen through history is the population keeps constantly going up. So which ones are we seeing an influx of you could have been an animal at some point, and now you're a human and there's just a lot of animal to human stuff happening, or there's just a lot of new souls that are being created now that are living their first life on this planet now. Do you see what I'm saying with the heightening in population, the growth in population?
Are you trying to ask, do you think that the species intermingle? Do you think you could have been an animal before and a human now and then an animal again later?
I guess that's half of my question. But the more important part is just
there's more human bodies.
There's more human bodies. So does that equate to new
I would think
souls?
that yes. Yes.
Or like, I guess the question is there a finite number of souls and there just happens to be more living a human experience right now?
No, I would say that there's more souls being created.
Okay.
That, yes. Well, because, so my actual belief system, like what I've lived my life believing is the story of the Bible, is
Right.
there are no multiple lives. You just live this life. And then when your spirit passes, it goes into the spirit world. And then there's judgment, blah, 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 blah. You figure out where you're going to be.
Right.
So in that system, every time someone's born, it's that the creator, God, made a new soul and put him into that body. So there's no complications there of any kind of overlapping or anything like that. Now, if we're going to use a system where there are multiple lives, so I understand what you're saying now, there would have to be still a creator creating new souls. And then once that soul is unleashed, it starts to make new lives.
Right.
But now what if you have an event? Okay, so this system's rocking and rolling, all right? And people are growing, and the creator's making new souls, and some are dying, and they're done with their journey, and some are dying and being reborn. And the system's rocking. It's getting bigger, bigger, bigger. Then you have like the Black Plague.
Yeah.
And it wipes out 2/3 of Earth. So let's just, for easy numbers, let's say there's 10 billion people, and let's just say half get wiped out. So now there's 5 billion. Okay. But that doesn't mean that 5 billion souls are just done with their journey.
Right.
Right?
And that's the question.
5 billion people didn't just figure it out spontaneously.
Yeah.
Or maybe they did. And that's why the creator
That's why
made
the
an
plague
event
happened.
happen. But who knows? This is all just philosophy, isn't it? This is all theory.
Well, and that actually struck a chord with me, because one thing that Vince and I have had a lot of conversations about is how every single time, and we've seen this in history, much like the bubonic plague, every single time the earth gets overpopulated, something happens to steady out the population again. Sometimes it's disease, sometimes it's genocide, sometimes it's natural disaster, like whatever.
There's been
it
a
is.
couple of really, really big, not extinctions, but close to it, like huge sloths of people getting wiped out.
Yes, exactly.
It's happened a couple times.
So it's kind of going off of that theory, it could be very possible of like, okay, well, we have
There was
all
just a
these
huge
people who are
enlightenment.
done.
They just, it's just an enlightenment. Now, what would be interesting is to go further and do some research and see if before these huge die-off events, I guess we'll call them, I don't know what else to call them, before these millions of people dying in a short period of time happen, is there any kind of golden era before that? Is there any kind of enlightenment era before that?
True.
Do some really detailed research on like what was being discovered around the world during that time. What were the advances being made? And see if there's any correlation between advancement and wipeout events.
Ooh,
That would be interesting. I don't know of any of those. If anyone out there knows of any documentaries or anything that has to do with that, I would be fascinated.
Yeah.
It would be a huge amount of research to do. It'd be very difficult.
Oh, yeah.
But that would be fascinating.
Yeah, dude.
It'd be the balance of life, right?
That's what it comes down to.
Humans advance, so they need less humans, so we wipe out some of the humans.
Well, and it gets to this.
It's a horrible way to say it, but
but even just on like the terms of like the Enlightenment, if we're going off of this, idea that you live these multiple lives, and let's just use the Black Plague again as an example, humans have been around for, I don't even know what the number is. Let's say 10,000 years. And
I don't think that's hugely far off.
Is that okay?
I really don't.
But,
I don't know.
So let's say humans been around for 10,000 years. Well, that's 10,000 years worth of life. And like, as much as I know there are a lot of things, off the scale that we can't even comprehend, I really just, my heart of hearts cannot see, us having to live 10,000 years worth of multiple lives to figure it out. You know what I mean? So then that's when
in this system, there would have to be some of the souls would figure it out and would be done with their journey.
Some of them wouldn't, right?
Some wouldn't and would be reborn, and then some would be new souls that the creator's making.
Yeah.
Because the whole point of making souls, the Bible says, it actually discusses the whole point of why God is even doing this and exerting the energy to make souls is he's lonely. He wants friends.
Right.
We're literally supposed to be his friends. And there's actually there's a distinction between we're not his servants, we're his buddies.
Right.
He created the angels to be servants. And it's serve the same way that it's not serve like what we think. It's not like bring you platters of food. It's like when he says woman was made to serve man. It's you're a helper, you're a lover, you're someone to guide through life.
Right.
That's what serve means. It's not what we think is today. But anyway, we're God's homies. The angels are the ones who serve and help. You know, there's a distinction.
Right.
I don't think you become an angel when you die. You're a different thing. You're a spirit.
Yeah, I wouldn't think so either in regards to at least
so
religion,
yeah, he would be in this system. He'd be creating new ones because he wants more homies.
Yeah,
you know,
it's
kind of makes sense. We just kind of
it does kind of make sense, doesn't it?
We?
Yeah. It's interesting. It's really fun to think about that kind of stuff though, when it comes to like past lives. And yeah, I mean it's something Justin and I have discussed many times, and we've even discussed it on a very kind of fantasy level in regards to like zodiac signs, right?
Yeah.
Where like I believe Aquarius is the first one on the zodiac sign list, and Leo's the middle, and I believe the very last one is Capricorn, one of those, or it might be Pisces actually. But if you go through those, we had this theory that like you start off as an Aquarius, and then you go and you then live, I think Pisces after Aquarius, then you do Pisces, and then so on and so forth, do them in order. And that's why, and if you look at like the quote unquote the personality traits of the different zodiac signs, it kind of follows this weird, strange story of like Aquarius, you're young, you're figuring it out, you kind of have the traits of like, you know, a young child, you know, who's still pure and has this imagination.
Aren't the water signs supposed to be like enlightened and knowledgeable and use their
to an
feelings a lot and their knowledge a lot?
Well, I mean, to an extent, it is just a theory, but it was just one of.
I never thought of it.
Yeah, it was just one of those things that once you get to the end, it's like, okay, you know, here you are, you figured it out.
I'm almost there.
Not November.
There. One more to go, baby.
But and Justin too believes in regards to like the past, like because Justin believes in the past life stuff, and Justin believes though that you always have like a circle no matter what life you live in. So like, but they always like appear in different ways. So like who's your best friend in this life you have now might have been your wife in your past life, or
like
who
soulmates.
Is this person here, but not just
not
soulmates,
romantic
like,
soulmates, but like literal.
Yeah, but there's like a circle of them. Like you could have 5 or 10 people you constantly reconnect with in every life in different ways. Yeah,
could be. I'll tell you that, I mean, we all kind of know, like, you have a feeling inside when you feel if things are naughty or if they're right? Like, you know good and bad, right? Even as a little kid. Yeah. You know that pulling the wings off a fly is naughty. It makes you feel weird.
Yeah.
Right? For the most part, unless you have, like, a differently wired brain. Right. But on average, you know right and wrong.
But even if you do it, there's that like, oh, this was wrong to do and I did it. You know?
The majority of people just have a feeling inside of what they're doing is right or wrong.
Yeah.
And I know for me personally, thinking about past lives, I don't feel naughty. Yeah. It doesn't feel like it's wrong to think that. Okay. However, honestly, when I think about it, like when I feel it, I don't feel that it is actually a thing. No. Like I can't say that I believe in past lives because truly, if I had to pick a sheet of paper, one said yes, one said no, I'm going to pick up no. In my heart of hearts, I don't believe in past lives. Okay. However, I am very willing to admit and to look into all the evidence that is surfacing because there's a shit ton of evidence. It's super fascinating.
I think when it comes in regards to past lives, and this is coming from somebody who is not as religious as you are, at least not in the same way, I look at it as like kind of the same way to where I think there's some validity to the past life stuff.
Definitely.
But I think like the things you and I have discussed about it today is like a very basic level of
Oh,
it
and it would
all.
have to be basic because
You know?
there's no way to understand it fully.
Yeah, but I feel like if I were to do more research into it and to look at the different evidence that may exist in regards to it on both the small and the larger scales, I feel like I could come up with a theory that would feel more valid, and add more validity to something like that. And
It would
make
certainly
me
make it
believe
less
it.
mystical, less
Yeah,
mysterious, just have some
exactly.
knowledge. I've literally never looked it up. I've never
Mm-hmm.
read about it. I've only watched a couple of documentaries throughout my life.
Yeah, same
So
here.
we're talking maybe 3 documentaries in 26 years.
Right.
Okay, so I'm not very versed in the whole thing. But it is definitely a teaser for your brain. I don't know if anyone could say that they're not interested in it.
Yeah.
At least, it's an interesting topic.
It really is.
And like I said, it doesn't make me feel like I'm doing anything wrong.
No.
So
Like I said,
I'm okay with exploring it.
Yeah, exactly. If anything, it just makes me more interested in it. I'm like, oh, how far does this rabbit hole go?
Yeah. Hopefully one day we get to find the answer.
Yeah. I
mean-
feel like this is gonna be one of those conversations where we're gonna go at months not talking about this again, but on and off, you and I will be like, oh, this happened or this happened,
if I see
and then
anything
we're
in the
going to
news
have
about
another
it,
conversation.
I'm gonna bring it up.
Yeah, and then we're gonna
It's
have another
fascinating,
conversation of a
man.
much grander theory that we both have on the subject.
People always usually, well, I guess not always, but in general, people want to know where they came from and they want to know where they're going to go.
And kind of
Right.
just want to know why they're here.
Why they're here is interesting too, but I think more so where am I going to go?
Yeah.
Where am I going to go? Mm-hmm. I can live with not knowing why I was here if you told me what's going to happen to me. That's the most, for me, that's the most nerve-wracking thing. That's the biggest unknown.
Yeah. Honestly,
Just anything but have it be totally over.
yeah. and
Anything but that.
I was just going to say, so when I think about dying and stuff like that, death truly does not scare me. And the reason why death doesn't scare me is because, for example, we have a lot of evidence to know into where we know death's obviously a natural process. We know that DMT is released before you die, so you get basically an acid
People
trip.
who have had near-death experiences will say that it's not scary in the moment.
Exactly, and
It's
that's
scary
my
leading
point.
up to it, but that moment, once you accept, I'm dead, I'm going to die right now,
You just this is it.
there's no way to explain it, but the stories I've heard, like you said, is it's a very peaceful process.
And that's my point. So death does not scare me because of that. The only thing that scares me is the possibility of there being nothing afterwards.
Oh, dude, that would suck.
Yeah. But at the same
I don't know if...
but at the same
can't dwell on
time,
it,
it's
though.
at the same time. Yeah, it's weird to think about. But at the same time, it's well, if there is nothing and you just don't exist anymore, well, you don't even have a chance to feel bad about not
Exactly.
existing.
For me, just, I don't know, let me keep going.
To tell you the truth, I just as a final note here, because we know that DMT gets released, and it's just a natural occurring chemical in your brain. When
It only
you die.
gets unleashed once, unless you artificially take a chemical to
Yes.
make it unleash.
Exactly.
It literally lives in your brain for the moment that you die. That, as far as I know,
Well,
it doesn't.
I believe there's other uses also, but I mean that's a whole other conversation. But I mean, but just my point being though is that sometimes I think that acid trips will last about 8 to 10 hours. You'll get about 5 to 6 hour trip with shrooms. Ayahuasca is like a 10. They all have different timelines, right? But I think that moment when you die and that DMT is released, that you ride that until the next thing happens for you to move on from there. But I think
so.
it's just the longest trip that you get. And that's just how you exist and where you exist now. Truly.
I guess I'd probably be okay with that.
I would be too.
That's not the worst thing that could happen to me,
No.
at least.
And anybody who does psychedelics, they all say, "Oh, I feel at peace and blah, blah, and this and that and everything." So if I get to feel like that just forever,
Except the ones that eat people's faces.
well, I don't even know if those are psychedelics. That's just called the zombie drug.
Usually people enjoy it, that I've heard of.
Usually, 99.9% of people. But anyways,
Those are skewed statistics.
yes. But anyways, on that note, thank you. That was a.
I didn't mean for it to be a religious podcast.
It was fun though. It was fun.
Hope it didn't offend anybody. Sorry if we did.
And it all started about with a story about it finding a key in the front yard.
Dude, the key was so fucking weird.
It was. That's how this all started, though.
We're going to look further into the key, guys. We'll let you know more about that.
We'll give you updates, guys. All right. Thank you so much for listening to today's podcast. If you made it to the end, hashtag past lives in the comments. Just hashtag that. Thank you. And remember, we have all the social media platforms you can follow us on. And remember, we have a Patreon, www.patreon.com/hardlymillennial. Any final thoughts, Matthew?
We need more foam, guys.
We need more foam.
Help us out. We love you guys.
Donate. All right, guys. Goodbye. Love you.
Bye.